Hey TV fans, Board now back with you. On this video I will be talking about Season 1 Episode 3 of Wolfpack. It is called Origin Point. To be honest, I think this might be my least favourite episode of the three, so it's really not going well. To add insult to injury, they add four more little shits, annoying little brats who... One of them I think we've seen before, but it's really hard to tell in this show because all the characters seem to blur in together. But I'm pretty sure Austin was one of them, a guy who looked like Austin anyway, because we open with these random four characters who we don't really know, and we see that it's on the same night, they're looking out over the fire, and they're acting all bitchy, especially the blonde-haired girl who we find out later on is Phoebe. And they're speculating about who started the fire. The guy who I think might be Austin, at least looks like him, he seems to be denying he was even on the bus. And they get picked up by the police as well, so they get brought in for questioning. Which seems to make me think they probably were on the bus, or unless they're just arresting like everybody who went to the school, or just because they're in the location. Who knows? It's all a bit confusing, but I did not like these characters from the moment they were on screen. Everything they said was annoying. Everything just felt like a stereotype, especially the bully Phoebe. Now, to use a Star Trek term, she felt like a real red shirt, and wouldn't you know, later on she does... Something happens to her. I don't know if it ever gets confirmed whether she's dead or not. Because the dad, like Luna and Harlan's dad, who reappears in this episode because he's been saved from the woods and comes to get them from the police station. At one point they find out that this girl Phoebe might be in trouble, so he goes out looking for her, but we never really hear what happened with that because they move on to other things. But yeah, she felt like a classic red shirt to me, like the way she was acting, the way like they introduced a new character randomly like that, but she just felt like someone who was being set up to be a victim from the word go. But as I said, with these new characters, they were only on screen for a few minutes, and I already hated them. Like, there was one of them who wasn't like too dislikable, but the other three were pretty much all dislikable, especially Phoebe. And it's not just being dislikable, it was also then she was just crude, and it just felt like crude for the sake of crude, rather than it's like, oh, this is really how a teenager would talk. Because everything about her was just in your face. It's like there was like over the top like use of swearing, just cliches about like social media and that's the thing, some of the stuff in this show, because like in this episode you do get once again some cynical like comments from different characters, like Harlem's one, but it doesn't really feel that realistic. It just feels like a standard sort of sarky sort of like teen type attitude, and almost like a grab bag of things that they just throw into like shows like that. Like you can sort of tell it's been written by like middle-aged men really, who just like assume how teenagers behave. Or that's how I sort of saw it. But nothing's really made in this episode of like the investigation. When all these kids all the teenagers are taken in to be interviewed, and that's the problem, is it seems to be like hinting at like an intriguing type mystery to this whole thing, but it's just so obsessed with all the hijinks, all the angst of the teens, and how their bodies and emotions are being affected, like changing into werewolves, or how they've been infected. And that's the problem. The focus is all that. And if that was more interesting, if they did something like really intriguing with that, or something either like subtle or more wacky, that's the thing. Like, if they don't make this into like a serious like thing, then they've got to go the other way and make it all hammy and over the top and entertaining. And they never do that in this show. Like, these characters are just too like bland and monotone to really do that. So there's certain moments that are entertaining, but you never really get that like off the wall so bad it's good like entertainment from it. Most of it is pretty much feels very samey and sort of bland. So really do anything with like the investigation angle, because you have them in the police station and the four of them agree to like a set story, which is they were getting high in the woods, they were using weed. And when Emmerich is being interviewed, he starts panicking and like screws up the story. But it's then that it's revealed that they all have like wolfy senses, basically. So they all have really good hearing and can hear each other through the walls. So you've got this long scene of them all with their ears pressed to the wall. I guess their hearing can't be that good if they have to press the ear to the wall. But that's like a whole thing. And you get Harlem really being bossy to like Emmerich from the other room, saying things like, never mind that, just answer the question. In your face, really, in this episode. Even more asshole one who's, when he catches Harlem like talking or listening through the walls, he gets really physical. And Ramsey warns him about, he says, if I ever catch you lay so much as a finger on one of these kids, then you're off the task force. For the top way that this cop is behaving, it's so obvious that he's just a villain from the start. I'm not sure exactly why, whether he's just a bit of an asshole and just uses like aggressive tactics to try and solve a case, or if there's just something more to it than that. And he goes to the house and stupid Harlan gets suckered outside, and he like tries to force a confession from him that is saved by a werewolf. Shows up, like the twins' dad, and he says, "You're not talking to my kids without a lawyer." And then I think it's Ramsey says something like that they've all agreed to talk to me. And then that's when Blake steps in and says, I haven't actually agreed to talk to you. And they all leave. Drama over, Harlem, can they really be trusted? And they're talking to the dad, and the whole issue of what happens on a full moon and how will they react. And once again, you see the Luna's more on the side of we can trust them. We've got to stay with them now because they're like us, and Harlem wants nothing to do with it. More of the dad. He is just so boring. Like we've only really saw him in snippets, but when we get more of in this episode, he is so sort of stiff and monotone and. I don't know, just nothing to him, just a blank sort of state. And he's very repetitive, like the way he talks and his dialogue as well. Once again, the best character in the show is definitely Blake, the best main character. Like the way she speaks and some of her lines. And the actress is definitely the best of the bad bunch when it comes to the lead. She has a little bit more about her, a little bit more proactive as well. But she once again has the best line of the episode, which is when the arsehole cop is like banging on the door, wants to speak to them. Because one of is the werewolf was, and she's like, I don't think the werewolf would be knocking on the door. Which is a good point. Blake and Emma are still having urges for each other, and this is getting repetitive now and really played out. I think they should just, if they're going to get together, then they should just get on and do it rather than keep stringing things out like this. Like they're being attacked by one of the werewolves, and they tell Emerald later it didn't do it because you're part of his pack. But there's this whole drama over Luna and Harlem trying to get the key to the garage and then trying to like get to the gun, because you keep cutting back and forth between them and like the other two who are out there outside and vulnerable, and this just isn't very good drama. It's just not very interesting to watch, and the scenes with them in this episode for the most part are really boring to watch. There's just nothing that interesting about them, like talking about the various ways, because at one point they've all got a special unique power and they're talking about that, and there's just nothing interesting. Big like thing at the end of the episode is, wouldn't you know, they go to the old silver bullet thing, the whole cliche, because the bullet that they use, silver bullet, and they realise the dad has had this all these years. He's made this silver bullet, comes out, and this is another really repetitive, like the way he keeps saying yes to every question, but he just says it in a really slow, drawn out, monotone sort of way. But they basically find out that he made the silver bullet, and he actually made it if the situation should arise to kill them, like if he needed to, if they became werewolves and he couldn't control them. Anything to recommend this episode? At least in the other two episodes there were like decent scenes or good moments. So for me this is definitely the weakest episode of the three. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always. On a more positive note, I am reviewing Yellow Jackets now on the channel in the build up to the second season. I've just done the first review of that. You can find that up on the channel. I also cover The Last of Us, which is fantastic, so I'm doing that weekly. And look out for me and Rachel doing more TV and horror reviews. We recently posted our latest Buffy review, which was a review of Buffy Season 3. Speaking of Sarah Michelle Gellar, if you're a fan of Buffy, go and check those reviews out. And we're also going to be doing more horror movies. We're going to be doing the Happy Death Day films, also the recent Shudder film Skinner Marik. So look out for more stuff from us coming up. But I'll see you guys again soon. Ho!